I always imagined my wedding would be a beautiful mess. You know, flowers a little crooked, my hair not quite cooperating, my shoes probably pinching, but full of laughter, joy, maybe a happy tear or two. Instead, I got something else. I was sitting on the edge of my bed that morning, still in my robe, clutching a cup of lukewarm coffee I'd forgotten to drink. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, but from something deeper, something colder. The early light poured in through the window, hitting the little note cards I'd written my vows on. I'd spent weeks perfecting them, rereading them in the car, in the shower, even whispering them in my sleep. But now they felt heavy, off, like they belonged to someone else. And all I could hear in my head was my mother's voice from the night before. Sweet, smiling, too sweet. You don't have to go through with this, you know. It's not too late to think clearly. She said it with a chuckle, like a joke, but it wasn't. That morning, something told me to check my email. Don't ask why. Call it gut instinct, call it paranoia. What I found changed everything. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, still, listening to the sound of my coffee maker sputtering in the kitchen like it was the only thing in the world that still made sense. My mom, my own mother, had done something I couldn't believe. She had been planning to sabotage my wedding, behind my back. But what she didn't know is that I had already found out, and I had a plan of my own. Growing up, my mom was complicated. She wasn't the type to throw hugs around or say, "I'm proud of you," very often. Everything with her was about image, clean clothes, perfect grades, smiling in family photos, even when we weren't talking at the dinner table. She had this way of making love feel conditional, like I had to earn it, check the right boxes, make the right choices, be the version of myself she imagined, not the one I actually was. And when I met Daniel, my fiancé, it was like I'd stepped out of the role she'd written for me. He wasn't rich, he wasn't from some Ivy League family. He didn't know which fork went with the salad, but he made me laugh when I was taking life too seriously. He listened, really listened, and he made me feel like I didn't have to perform. That scared her. At first, she pretended to be supportive. She said all the right things. You know, if you're happy, I'm happy, kind of stuff. But underneath that, I could see it. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when we talked about the wedding. The way she never used his name, always calling him your boyfriend, like he was some phase I'd grow out of. There were little comments too. Are you sure he's the one? You've always been a bit impulsive. Marriage is a big commitment, not something to rush. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself she just needed time. But with every passing month, it became clear she didn't want time. She wanted control. The more involved she got in the wedding planning, the more tense everything became. She started offering to handle things, the caterer, the seating chart, the invitations, all under the guise of helping, but every suggestion felt like a correction, like she was trying to turn my wedding into hers. And the worst part, when I said no, and politely, her tone would shift, passive-aggressive silence, snide little comments, that classic guilt trip sigh she'd mastered when I was 10. Fine, do it your way, you always do. At some point, I realized this wasn't about Daniel. It wasn't even really about me. It was about control, about her losing the version of me she could shape, manage, and manipulate. And if she couldn't control the wedding, she was going to do everything in her power to ruin it. I just didn't know how far she'd actually go. Not yet, but I was about to find out. Planning a wedding is supposed to be exciting. Stressful, sure, but mostly exciting. But for me, it felt like walking through fog. Every step forward came with a weird sense of uncertainty, like I was missing something, but couldn't quite name it. At first, it was small stuff. The venue I had fallen in love with suddenly wasn't available anymore. They told me someone had called and canceled the booking. But when I asked who, they just said, a woman representing the bride.
That was weird. I hadn't canceled anything. Then, there was a cake tasting. I showed up to the bakery on the day of our appointment, and they looked confused, said it had been rescheduled. Again, not by me. I chalked it up to vendor mistakes, miscommunication, wedding chaos. That's what everyone told me. Things go wrong. It's normal. Except, it wasn't just things going wrong. It was things being changed, moved, canceled, and always without my knowledge. And somehow, my mom always knew. She always had a backup plan ready. Her preferred venue, her favorite bakery, her friend's daughter who did floral arrangements for cheap. It felt convenient, too convenient. One night, Daniel and I were up late finalizing the guest list. I mentioned my cousin James and how we should make sure he gets an invite. My mom, who wasn't even part of the conversation, chimed in. Oh, he's not coming. He had to back out. I talked to his mom already. Except, I'd literally texted James that morning. He was excited and had even picked out his suit. That's when the light bulb went off. She was going around me, calling vendors, talking to family, making decisions, and undoing mine, all while pretending to be helpful. I started to test it, on purpose. I called the caterer to confirm some changes and was told that someone else had already updated the menu. When I asked who, they hesitated, then gave me the email address. It was my mom's. I asked her about it that night, casually, just to see what she'd say. She denied it, smiled and said, I don't even know how to access their system. But the weird thing is, she knew about the new appetizer option, the one I hadn't told anyone about yet. That was the moment I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. I didn't have proof, not yet, but I knew something was off. I knew she was involved in ways she wasn't admitting, and I knew I needed to start paying attention, really paying attention, before things got worse. Because this wasn't just a controlling mom being over-involved. This felt like sabotage, and I had no idea just how far she was willing to take it. I wish I could say I caught her in some dramatic movie-style trap, but the truth is, it happened on a completely ordinary Tuesday. I was at work, checking emails between meetings, when I saw one from our DJ. Subject line, final confirmation, reception playlist edits. Except, I hadn't made any edits. I clicked the email and opened the attachment, and there it was, a full list of updated songs. Not ours. Not anything Daniel or I had picked. It was completely different, stuff my mom liked, old pop songs, a waltz, and worst of all, she had removed our first dance song. That song meant everything to us. We picked it the night we got engaged. It was ours, private, intimate, and she was just erasing it. There was a name at the bottom of the edit request. Her name. That was it for me? Something inside me clicked, like the moment after a long, confusing dream, when everything just makes sense. Every cancellation, every mistake, every suspiciously well-timed fix she had offered. She wasn't helping. She was orchestrating a slow, quiet breakdown of our entire wedding, and I finally had proof. I went home that night and started digging. Emails, text threads, call logs, vendor confirmations. I even logged into the wedding planning platform. She'd insisted on using one she found, and saw she'd made dozens of changes under a guest login with her email attached. But the worst came the next morning. I got a call from our photographer, someone I'd hired months ago and absolutely loved. She said she was confused. Apparently we were going in a different direction and she wished us the best, except we weren't. I hadn't canceled anything, so I asked her to forward the cancellation email. There it was, a message sent from an account using my full name, but it wasn't mine. A fake Gmail account, pretending to be me, polite, professional, and completely fraudulent. I felt sick that, not just because of the lies, but because it was deliberate. This wasn't a mistake.
This wasn't an overbearing mom trying to help. This was sabotage, premeditated, methodical, and my mom had created a fake email account to impersonate me. That's when the panic wore off, and something else took its place. Clarity. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to let her think she'd won, that she had everything under control, and then I was going to flip the entire thing upside down, right in front of her, at the wedding. Once I had the proof, the hardest part was staying quiet, pretending everything was fine, smiling through phone calls, letting her suggest ridiculous ideas like releasing doves or walking me down the aisle to a song she picked. I nodded, agreed, said, "That sounds lovely, Mom." But inside, I was working on my own plan. I didn't want to cancel the wedding. I didn't want to argue, scream, or beg her to stop. I wanted her to see the whole thing unfold, every moment of it, knowing she had tried to destroy it and failed. So I started making quiet calls, reached out to every vendor she'd tampered with, explained everything. I showed them proof, apologized for the confusion, and thankfully, most of them were understanding. A few even waived their rebooking fees once they saw what was going on. I asked the DJ to prepare 2 playlists, the one she wanted and the real one, hidden under a different name. I told him exactly when to switch. I asked the photographer to show up as planned, but to stay hidden until the ceremony started, and to be ready to capture everything. And I asked my cousin, the one she lied about, if he'd be willing to help me with a little moment during the reception. He said yes without even blinking. And just like that, game on. The day of the wedding, my mom showed up beaming, playing the perfect mother of the bride, complimenting my dress, telling guests how proud she was. If she had any idea I knew, she didn't show it. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Everything looked beautiful. Daniel was glowing. I was calm. But she started to get fidgety when the reception began. She walked over to the DJ booth at one point. I could see her talking to him, clearly confused when he couldn't find her version of the playlist. He told her it had been overwritten accidentally, and that he was just following the bride's final list. She smiled tightly and walked away. Then came the big moment. The speeches were done. Dinner was over. The room was warm with laughter and clinking glasses. I stood up, took the mic, and then I said I had something to share. I played a voicemail from the photographer when she called me to confirm that I was canceling her services, the one my mom had impersonated me for. I pulled up an email chain on the screen behind me with permission from the venue, showing the fake Gmail account and how it traced back to her IP address. You could feel the air shift, like the whole room had suddenly leaned forward. My mom froze. She didn't speak, didn't move. And then I said the words I'd been waiting to say. Someone tried to ruin this wedding, but they failed, because today, right now, I'm surrounded by people who love me for who I am, and I'm marrying the man I chose, not the one someone else approved of. Applause. Actual applause. She left quietly before the first dance. We played our song anyway, and I danced with my husband, under lights she didn't pick, in a dress she hadn't approved, to a song she tried to delete. It was the most beautiful moment of my life, not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. It's been a few months now since the wedding, and if I'm being honest, things didn't magically fix themselves after that night. My mom didn't call the next day. She didn't apologize. She didn't even send a message to say she got home safe. She just disappeared from the celebration and went radio silent. At first, I kept checking my phone, half expecting some long, guilt-filled email or teary voicemail, but it never came. And I had to accept something I'd been avoiding for a long time. My mom loved me conditionally. As long as I played her version of the daughter she imagined, obedient, curated, controllable, I was acceptable. But the moment I started living for myself, she chose distance. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because I finally realized something important. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. It's what allowed me to protect one of the most important days in my life. It's what let me reclaim my own voice in front of the very person who had spent years trying to silence it with smiles and manipulation. Daniel and I are happy. We're building a life together, one that's messy and imperfect, and beautifully ours. We still talk about the wedding sometimes, not with bitterness, but with pride. Because in the end, it wasn't just about outsmarting sabotage. It was about choosing peace, choosing love, choosing each other. And I've learned that sometimes the family we build matters more than the one we come from. So, to anyone out there dealing with a controlling parent or someone trying to script your life, let me just say this. You're allowed to take the pen back. And when you do, write something beautiful.